Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back for the third part of the Bodynamics Somatic Psychology video, where we will be discussing the last three character structures moving forward as they will apply to module 4 and 5. Okay, let me share my presentation and we're going to start. Okay. So let's start talking about somatic psychology, bodynamics. This is part 2. Again, pay attention to the picture that talks about the fact that we are not all supposed to look the same. And this is the reference to the fact that this practice is body-oriented therapy, body-oriented psychology based. Okay, let's talk about the last 3 structures. We discussed the first 4 structures, which were existence per structure. Let me find you the picture of all the structures just for you to get an idea. So going back to the fact that this therapy is based upon the 5 bodied parts that were put forward by William Reich, the father of body-oriented therapy. And to repeat the structures, we went through the first 4. We went through existence. Here is the first structure. Existence lasts from pregnancy to 3 months. The second structure goes from 1 month to 1.5 years. The third structure, autonomy, goes from 8 months to 2 years and 6 months. The fourth structure, will, develops between ages of 2 to 4. Okay, we're going to go through the last 3 stages. And we're going to discuss what happens when there is disturbance, issues, trouble, stress, trauma during the development stages. What happens? What are the issues that the person develops? Okay. So the 5th stage character structure develops during the ages 3 to 6. It's love, sexuality. I like to call it gender identity. Okay. This is the part where the child learns to love in a romantic way. Okay. Learns to integrate heart and sexual feelings. The disruption in this stage can be viewed in adults by seeing that there is a split between loving and sexual feelings, okay? The mixing, that you can love and having sex are not necessarily the same. And being a bit way too romantic or way too seductive way of behaving in a relationship. The developmental themes during this stage is becoming conscious and aware of one's gender. Okay, this is a gender identity. This is the time when children start identifying and understanding that there are 2 types of parents. Okay, there's another name for it, triangulation, but we'll talk about it in module 4. In triangulation, triangulation is a part where a child starts connecting to parents not as one entity, but rather understanding that there's a female and a male. There's a mom and there's a dad, connecting to different types of energy exhibited by both, right? There is a feminine energy, there's a masculine energy, identifying with whatever seems to be the right one for them. Understanding that the 2 parents play 2 different roles, understanding that they can get 2 different support systems from each parent, and most importantly, understanding that if one parent is upset, then the other parent will provide support. That's very important to understand. Often parents will gang up on the child, and that's not the right way. One parent can be, basically playing good cop, bad cop kind of thing. But maybe switching roles. Don't always, one parent shouldn't always play the bad cop and the other one good cop. They should switch around, okay? That's very important. A lot of time parents gang up. They both play bad parent, bad cop, okay? And that's not good for the child because the child doesn't need to feel support system. The child doesn't need to be accepted, acknowledged. It's about the fact we talked about it. The whole practice is built on the system of identifying with self-value and dignity. Okay, so if somebody does even if a child does something wrong, they shouldn't feel that it's the worst thing in the world, that means they have no value in life, okay? And that's the job of a parent, to portray, to pass over the idea that you did something wrong, but that's not the end of it. There is a way for you to rectify the situation, you know, and come back and we will work on it further. So that's something important, okay? It's also the time when children start gender identifying themselves. So most of the time, okay, again, now I'm not going to talk, I'm not an expert whatsoever on gender fluidity, right? So I will talk from the conventional point of view of this practice, the way psychologically we explain it, okay? Now you guys will, remember what I always say, take whatever I'm taking and apply it to your value system, okay? So the idea here is that the little girls start identifying, again, this happened during the age of 3 to 6. This is nowhere near the teenage years, by the way. This is way, way, way before, not even preteens, okay? So between the ages 3 to 6, okay, social settings occur, okay? A lot of kids start going to preschool, start going to daycares, okay? And we know at the age of 5, at least in the US and many places all over the world, 5, 6, 7 is a time when the kids start going to school. Social setting, identification setting, social structures. So children start creating gender identity where they feel that they will connect to, let's say little girls will connect and say, I'm like mommy and I love daddy. Okay, basically, I wouldn't take it as far as what Freud said regarding his the stage where we talked about it, the Freudian stage, the Oedipus Electra complex, right? Where he basically went a bit too far back then when he only spoke about the male point of view, where he talked about girls having the penis envy, right? The phallic envy, and boys wanted to be like fathers. We know a lot has changed. It's been a century. It's been a more, maybe approximately 100, it's in 2024 now. So what Freud wrote, remember Freud passed away in the 30s of last century, in 38. So it was around this time, 100 years ago, when he started talking about his theory and everything else. And that's why it wasn't, of course, it was a very I think the word is androgenic. Let me check. Right, that's what I thought. The word is androcentrism. Androcentrism is the term that represents that it's a cultural and social tradition where a man and his experience are considered the norm, and a woman and a woman's experience are considered different from the norm, okay? Now we know in our days, the narrative has been changing. It's still changing. It's still a huge, huge, huge process. We're still quite far away from androcentrism being a thing of the past. It's quite, by the way, still a relevant term to our days, because almost everything, all philosophies, all social sciences, scientific point of view, everything is actually based upon the fact that terms are considered from a male point of view. Okay, I'm not going to go too much into it. I talk a lot about it in the, I have an open video called Labyrinth, the Mythology and Symbolism, where I discuss this as part of the symbolism and mythology and metaphoric understanding of how the world works, okay? But the idea here is the same, it applies the same, because the idea is that what Freud would refer to, of course, he went a bit overgeneralized. We know nowadays that's not how it works, but there is still, it's still, by the way, calling something an Oedipus or Electra complex is still valid terms, by the way, within the psychology field, okay? And the idea is that boys tend to identify with the dad and say, oh, I am just like dad. Of course, in the beginning, that happens on a physical level. They look at the dad, they look that they anatomically look the same. So of course, they tend to identify with the fact that they're like dad and they're not like mom. Okay, if they have siblings, they'll be like, I'm not like my sister. I am like my father or my brother, okay? And other male, if there are other male relatives, but it's mostly the dad. And of course, the opposite for the girls, they tend to identify with the girl, with the mom, because anatomically they would look like the mom, right? And emphasis being on the private parts, of course. And the idea is that they start, it's a two-way process. One would be identifying yourself with the same-sex parent, and then what Freud, of course, overgeneralized, but there is some kind of connection and like an interest. And it's about curiosity and interest in trying to understand how the opposite sex works. So as a result, the girls will like become more interested in spending time with the dad. Okay, it's also part of being identified with the mom because mom has a special relationship with the dad. If I'm like mom, do I get to have a special relationship with my dad? Okay, in the most innocent way, of course, of understanding this term. And that's where girls tend to be a bit more interested in spending more time with that because it's actually makes total sense because it's about curiosity on how does the opposite sex works. And that's how they kind of get used to this preteen ideas of I need to know how social structures work. They, of course, get used to the idea that there is a family, that I have a mom and a dad. Of course, when we come to single parent homes, this is where this idea comes askew, okay? And that's why there's a lot of confusion and love, sexuality, and gender identity due to the fact that there's so many single parent homes, okay? That doesn't give like the full picture for a child to experience. Okay, so the idea is that the child start thinking, okay, so if I'm like mom and she's interested in this one man, right, my dad, I need to find out what makes his dad, this person who doesn't look like me, so enticing so that my mom would be interested in him, okay? And that's how they kind of develop certain ideas of how the man should or should not act. And of course, the opposite works for a boy, right? We talked about it in the mama presentation that the boys learn all about the feminine aspect, what the woman is like, how, you know, it's a cliche, of course, in the generalization that men are attracted to women who look like their mom, but there's something to it. Okay, there is some kind of part of it, but I wouldn't go to overgeneralize it as much as, let's say, Freud did, or even as pop culture tends to do it, okay? Because still, nobody takes away from very personal facts. Nobody takes away that when there are many brothers of the same mother, they end up marrying different women. They don't look alike. I mean, you know, look at, what's the name? Forgot. The Jonas brothers, right? They all have different wives, right? So that's the interesting part. Start paying attention to understanding. How does this work? What can I do? You know, so this is part two where this will be connecting us to module number 4, where we kind of reconnect to that stage when we start to figuring out what was our experience like, okay? And connecting and figuring out, let's learn more about this stage, okay? So it's about being conscious and aware of one's gender, developing and integrating ideas of love and sensuality, of sexuality, the difference between heart and gender, okay? The idea that, you know, it's romantic, or is it more sexual? Is it more realistic? Is it more, you know, fantasy land, you know, prince and princesses? Or it's actual, you know, real man, real woman ideas. Direct them toward the parents of opposite sex when they then grown-ups and children of the same age, okay? It's interesting to note, okay? So at this stage, children start developing, like I said, it's not really being in love. It's more like, it's not even infatuation, but it's this kind of curiosity that shows itself more like maybe obsession or infatuation, where she's going to be daddy's little girl and he's going to be mommy's little boy, okay? It's important. Now, they say homosexuals often will show the opposite. Like, I be honest with you, I don't, personally, I do not have enough experience in that research. But I'm going to take the research words for it, okay? But I think it's such a changing environment, such a changing field that no research will ever be like for sure. It's still something being discovered and learned about, okay? Same thing would go with other grown-ups. And sometimes, not so much you can see, but sometimes at this age, they will sometimes choose to spend time of opposite sex, but in peers, it doesn't usually work like that. Girls still enjoy playing more with girls and boys playing more with boys, but only for the reason of shared interest. Because girls, again, talking from a conventional point of view, there are many, many differences, right? Exclusions. I personally had that. My girls played with both cars. My daughter, one of my middle daughters played with dinosaurs. Her third or fourth birthday, we had a dinosaur theme party because she loved everything about dinosaurs. It's not, I don't believe it's ever so clear unless it's socially inflicted upon by parents or like entities like daycare or something. It's not like that where girls only want to play with dolls and boys only want to play with cars. The truth is, from my knowledge, and I worked enough with children to let you know for sure, how, and very heterogeneous fields, very, very different cultural backgrounds. I worked all over New York City in all kind of different backgrounds, okay? So it's for sure, children do enjoy playing with various things. Sometimes they like to play with cars, sometimes they like to play with dolls, and I do talk about both genders. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? So when they do want to play together, it's simply because most of the time girls do prefer to play with dolls and the dollhouse and dress ups and families, and boys like to play crashing and superheroes and cars and trucks, and building, but it's never cut in stone and it's always eclectic, okay? So on the verbal and mental level, this is the stage when they develop the ability to speak in long sentences. They can talk about reasoning. You can hear them like actually reasoning and performing some logical verbaling out, participate in some talking. They talk about like concrete abstract thinking. They have the ability to change focus from imagination, fantasy world, to concrete reality, okay? They will go, like even in various social structures, like daycares and school settings, right? They will go from like playing in playtime, building with blocks, or playing dolls, or creating something out of Play-Doh, to let's learn how to read, let's learn how to write, let's practice realistic, like here and now activities, okay? It's during this stage is when they develop various friendships, they learn on developing various relationships, develop, again, I don't know if we can talk about it, but it's different. Best friends can be both males and females, and nowadays it doesn't necessarily have to be the same sex, but the idea is that not necessarily romantically involved, but rather based on the shared interest, right? That's a definition of a best friend, right? Practicing and creation of constructive alliances, right? They form groups, not as much as they do during teen years, but still they form groups, okay? Becoming aware of muscular tension and relaxation, okay? At this stage already, children learn how to do yoga and relaxation, meditation, and actually quite well benefit from it, okay? They become aware of gender roles. We talked about it. They become aware of various types of parents, mother, daddy, grandma, grandpa, right? They become aware of aspects of gender roles in family. And by the way, that's would be very subjective. Let's say if a child grows up in a family where the father is a stay-at-home dad, or he works from home, right? Or he has a business from home, and the mother works like in a corporate setting, or she goes out of her house for home, he will look at this as mommies go to work and daddies stay home. even if he does business at home, right? Even if there's a nanny who takes care of the child will associate with that. Daddy stays home and mommy goes to work. So it's very, very subjective. Again, like I said, nowadays, the gender roles are so fluid that everything's changing just as we learn. Just as you're going to watch this video, something new is going to come up, basically, right? And that's the idea, right? They also notice and compare how other families, right? Like I had a single family home, right? Single parent. My parents were divorced, so I grew up with my mom. I didn't see my dad at all. But I remember going to my cousins constantly, like at least every weekend or every other weekend, and comparing and thinking, okay, look, they're different. You know, they have a mom and a dad, right? My mom was only and her siblings, she was the only one who was divorced. So I got to see, and plus I lived in a very conservative society where most families were. I was born in the 70s, so I'm talking about the 80s when I was growing up, right? I was born in 76, so 80s is the time when I was, let's talk about 3 to 6, 79 to 82, right? But the idea is, of course, I don't remember that time. I remember being much older, but the idea is to say, I would inevitably think, okay, oh, so this is like what it's like to have a dad, okay? Oh, so this is the relationship that I would see my aunt and uncle have. And I'm thinking that this is what it means to have a relationship, okay? And by the way, this is where it kind of starts. The children who grow up to become adults later thinking that the relationships work like this, right? And then once they socialize with others, once they grow up, once they start consciously thinking and rethinking their values, right? Those of you from Golden Value class, you know what I'm talking about, right? They're rethinking their value system. They start understanding that this actually works, maybe working differently, maybe understanding differently, maybe creating differently, okay? Learning to balance one's loving, intimate, and sexual emotions, okay? Again, it's a bit of a stress. The age 3 to 6, there isn't that much sexual development, but there is a discovery of the body. Okay, more conscious look at the gender, at the private parts. Okay, gender identity, physical attributes. Okay, more understanding of how it works in social context. When I see daddy, he has the same private parts as I do, but mommy doesn't, or my siblings, my sister don't, and my brothers do. You know, again, kind of social identifying, okay? Not just gender identity, but also identifying within social context, okay? Growing up in more conventional, that this is how it works, okay? More families seeing mom and dad, male and female, okay? Those growing up in a less conventional society will see will have a different subjective experience, right? Those growing up in certain geographical location will see maybe more gender fluid families, right? Where the parents of the same sex or parents met transgender parents, polygamy, nowadays polyamy, I think it's called now, where they may be triple the parents, right? Somebody who's female, somebody who's male, somebody who's transgender, right? There is so many, like I said, things changing as we speak. So it's interesting that every generation will have a completely different understanding and experience of completely different than the ones even 2 years ago. Okay, that's something to keep in mind. So those who have issues in the development of the stage early on, and that would be, I would say, 3 to 4.5 years old, tend to develop a very non-realistic, more romantic, kind of view of what relationships are and what gender roles are. And those, of course, who have a late 4.5 to 6-year-olds disruption within the late time in the state, we'll look at relationships as more of a seductive way of behaving, manipulation, okay? Romantic is more naive, more innocent, and seductive is more realistic, but using sex as a manipulation, let's put it this way, okay? So the early romantic general attributes: parent negates sexual component of love and encourages child's sweetness. Okay, This is about growing up in a conventional, princess, damsel in distress, being saved by the prince, where the women are given more of passive roles, more of taking care of the family, not being, remember, look at fairy tale, talking about symbolism, metaphors, and of course, fairy tales, okay? In fairy tales, assertive women are how? Assertive women are evil queens. They're evil queens or witches, okay? When they're assertive, when they get what they want, that means they're either witches or evil queens, okay? Positive roles are given to Snow White, Cinderellas who don't rebel against the structure, their roles that they're given by the society, that the roles that we're born in, okay? If it's an assertive woman, it's usually a negative. So that's something was, again, very much of an androcentrism. Okay, well, males view any active part, any assertiveness on behalf of a woman as a threat. So they kind of downplay that or assign it a negative role in conventional fairy tales, okay? Just FYI. So a lot of times when girls grow up with this notion, this is what it's about. Child denies sensual sexual feelings, like I said, more of an innocent point of view, like more about romanticism than the idea that, people, I met girls like that. They're like, oh, they're kind of like afraid to form relationship, or they're afraid of sexual relationships. They're more like, they just want the idea of a husband or mate, but without the realistic notion of sex. And it's like, right, where did that come from? So this is the stage when it develops. Repressed sexuality, there you go. Wound is in the pelvis, resulted in the poor pelvic energy. If you're interested, we do special exercises for this. And I don't mean pelvic pelvic exercises that you can learn on your own. But there's special exercises that relate to this connection to this sexual energy, okay? Experience their love as pure, untainted by sexual desire. Again, very innocent, very idealistic, coquettish, flirty, flirts, but does not, again, not too much forward, right? Because again, this is mostly, by the way, very androcentric point of view, by the way, because it talks from a male point of view, because coquettish, flirty, have all wait for others to initiate contact. This is more of what males expect women to do. There's so much, even in psychology, I did this a lot. Again, if you want to watch that labyrinth mythology and symbolism video, where I explained there's so much, even the terms we use toward anima animus, the way feminine energy can be expressed, even the terms we use are so androcentric, okay? Like even this, the description is completely, totally of a woman. Nobody expects a male to be coquettish and then wait to initiate contact. No, it's very much of a feminine expectation. So a lot of here is so reeks of androcentrism, so reeks of the male view of how females are supposed to act. So that's interesting to pay attention, okay? Remember, this had been developed in the 80s. It's been 30, 40 years. It's still, this is I found, by the way, on the website, official Bodynamics website. So that's something to keep in mind in how it works, even in, in any social studies field, okay? Things are changing, but way, way, way slow, okay? Waiting for the Prince Charming so they can give their heart away when they arrive. Again, mostly this happens with females. Rarely do males grow up like that, okay? Thoughts and feelings wrapped up in fantasy, wants reality to be different than it is. Defense is denial. Paradoxically uses sex to get love and connection because they realize, they understand, they learn that this is the realistic way of the way the reality works. Sex is a part of being connected. Remember, we talked about previous stages where people of early position disruptions need connection. They can't live without connection. They have a codependency on other people being connecting, on energy from other people, right? So that's what it is, okay? They do get, they learn, if they learn earlier on that sex isn't important, but they still use it as a way of connection. The key word here is establishing connection, using sex as establishing connection, using the body as establishing connection, okay? Female version would be Charlotte from Sex and the City. Male version is Chivalry, White Knight, again, very conventional point of view. Males save the females, right? Females are dependent, again, the word dependency, notice, having somebody else save you, okay? Romeo and Juliet, Beauty and the Beast, okay? Prince Charming and Cinderella, of course. It's the work does involve working with the deck. The physical exercises, gaze in innocent, flirting females and proud in males. Sex organs are hidden, drawn back, okay? They're not into dressing too tightly because they don't want to accentuate their body as a sexual object, because, you know, it's not about sex, it's about romanticism. Okay. Integrate fantasy and reality without giving up on either. Feeling sexual rather desire in the lower part of the body as opposed to exclusively in the heart. Again, separation between the upper and the lower body, like actually feels like two different halves, they will say. So late position disruptions will look like this, okay? Attributions are to parents focusing on the sexual component of love, focusing on reality at the expense of fantasy, saying, you know, in order to be well-lived, you need to marry off well, you need to marry somebody who is rich, you need to marry somebody who has a social status, you know. For men, they will say, in order to get a good, you know, business, there are two notions. One would be to marry a woman who has from a good social status and who can help you, who has maybe a good father, who can help you achieve more in business, or the opposite also effect. You only marry a woman who will be dependent on you, who doesn't come from a too much of an affluent family, whose family will not be too popular than yours, because then she will be in a higher social status and you don't want it. So it's two different types of like two extremes, okay? And of course, females is marrying a man who will protect you. So it could be as extreme as marrying somebody who might be much older, but it doesn't matter if they're rich and they are affluent and social status, right? Or it could also go as the opposite, right? Only dating guys who are much younger, because that's how you can control them not taking over you if a female feels like too much threat to be emotionally involved, right? The seductive area is about, you know, like not being overly emotionally involved. Of course, it's Samantha from Sex and the City, right? Controlling the emotions. It's just about sex, nothing emotional, not falling in love, because that would mean hurting. So child identifies with sexuality and not so much connected to the emotional connection about love and fantasy and all that. Okay. Gazes straight on, undresses you with their eyes, very straightforward, okay? Guards protects heart from deep intimacy. Like I said, it's too much to get emotional involved. I'm only interested in, you know, just sex, just mental, maybe connection, maybe, you know. Paradoxically shows love to get sex, so it's opposite. The previous one, remember, they would show sex to get love, to get connected, but if they want certain sexual object, they will pretend to be in love, even though they're not capable, they're not open to deep connection or deep intimacy. What's love got to do with it? Tina Turner's song, right? Like I mentioned, Samantha from Sex and the City, this is female version, and male version is Don Juan, somebody who is a womanizer, somebody who is a player, somebody who is Lothario, okay? Physical attributes, neck is held straight. Remember, the later positions is usually very straight spine, because they have a lot of resources, but they're hypertension, right? Their muscles are tense too much. with early position, the heightened hypertension, right? Because their muscles are too relaxed. They don't have enough strength in their muscles, okay? So it's always two opposites. Gaze is seductive, okay? We can see the picture of Marilyn Monroe here. Move like they're on the prowl, on the hunt, like they're constantly undressing. You know, there's a saying, undressing the men with your eyes. Sex organs, not just men, by the way, men do the same with women. Undressing with one's eyes is a correct connection to this position. Sex organs are forward, exhibited, dressing very tightly, dressing very sexually, very provocative. Again, using the word provocative is a very androcentric word, because that's viewing the way people dress from a point of view of a male. Okay, men never dress provocatively, by the way. Even if they dress very, very, very tight, they don't consider it to be provocative because they're male. They're not seductive. Okay, they're not, and if they are, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, female being dressed provocatively only applies to female because they're the ones who would use sexuality to lure men. Okay, very, very androcentric point of view. Like I said, a lot of terms. The more I teach, the more I become aware of various terms that are very androcentric, that only applies as a negative term towards women. They don't even apply to men. You can't say this dressing provocatively for a man. What would be dressing provocatively for a man? Nothing. Even if he wears like very tight skin, bathing shorts or pants, that would not be considered provocative because men do not provoke, women do. You guys notice? So it's very important to start becoming aware of this androcentric terms that we use even in psychology, that we use even in describing clothing, right? Something to be aware, okay? So they need to learn the late position, people who have disruptions in the late position, they need to learn to have friendship without sexualizing them, right? This is about like males who say we can't be friends with women, you know, and the same thing for women who say we can't be friends with male, you know, you can't be friends without having sex and all that stuff. Drop the guard around in their heart and open to feelings of greater heart intimacy. Okay. Balancing heart and sexuality, enjoying both loving and sexual intimacy. That's a healthy, balanced way. People who grew up in this stage to have a balance, this is what they would act on. Acting from healthy resource love, sexuality, healthy gender identity position. Again, that doesn't only mean heterosexual, okay? Even homosexual, the person can be homosexual. I don't want to go too much into it because it's such a fluid field nowadays, because so no matter what I say can be taken wrong by people from different opposite stages, because things are a bit more subjective nowadays still. So I'm not going to say much about it, but it's about a healthy position on self-identity, gender self-identity, you know, and this is the most important part: feeling valued, feeling dignified, feeling respected for their personal way of loving, for their personal sensual and sexual feelings and behavior. Okay, a person who has a healthy development within the structure sense both and understanding the difference between sexual and loving relationship, being able to go into intimacy, be able to go into relationship. Okay, a pelvis is centered, not rotated backward or front, right? Can enjoy flirting and being seductive and does so responsibly, right? Not overly. I'm going to try to stay away from saying again, being dressed provocatively, because we understand that that's such a one-sided term, right? Can be sexual with one person and loving with another person, right? It's about, you can love somebody without being sexually involved. Basically understanding the realistic way of distinguishing between those two terms. Can accept refusal or rejection. Can respond clear-heartedly to the overtures of others. If somebody makes a pass or somebody's coming on, I do mean like in love position or in sexual, being able to say I am in a committed relationship, or I might be interested in you, but maybe this is too much for me now. I like to take things slow. Or being able to control and being able to be aware of their sexual energy and understand how they can use it responsibly with their mates, okay? And I do mean response. It's not about somebody having more or less sex. It's about somebody being aware of their sexual energy and knowing how to use it appropriately, not rushing too much into sleeping on first date or second or third, that whole cliche about the third date, it doesn't work like that, not using cliches, not using social identified structures when it comes to your personal, very personal view of love and sexuality. Okay, this is the most important part. Okay. We're going to talk about triangulation. I'm going to make a separate video about it. Okay. I gave phrases here, okay, that we can use during this. This is the phrases, by the way, when we're going to draw the mandala. You can draw the mandala of me, myself, and I. And when we draw this stage, you can say the phrases here, okay? And you can say this phrases during the module 4. Yeah, during module 4. Opinion is stage 6. Altogether, remember, there are 7 stages. Opinion gets developed within the ages 5 to 9. Okay, the child learns to put himself, his center, into words. Okay, learning to express himself with words, right? This is where you hear a lot of times in schools and in daycares when the teachers say, kind of refusing to acknowledge the emotional expression of the child, and will say, please express yourself with words. Okay, it's about learning to deal with rules, and it's going beyond the authority. That, remember, we talked about authority and autonomy and will. This is going beyond. This is about group rules, not just one person in authority, just one teacher or just a parent or parents even, but still adult. But it's also about in schools, when even classrooms, they get together teachers. And good schools is where teachers talk to children and they together develop a set of rules that everybody will follow. Okay, it's about learning to understand norms, learning to understand where you are, what's your cultural background, what kind of people, learning to understand the difference between what you see on TV that happens somewhere in Hollywood, the way Hollywood people think should be done, and what's happening in your own community, learning to understand between your reality and other people's reality. And that's, by the way, is the hardest time. That's something that teenagers actually kind of struggle with, but this is where it belongs. This is where it begins. It starts at this age, 5 to 9. Okay, preteen. Okay. In an adult, the way we see disruption in the stage, it will be difficulty in forming and expressing opinions, having rigid opinions, or rejecting those of others, thinking that it's only your opinions are the valid ones. Okay. Developmental themes, knowing the difference between right and the left side of oneself, understanding the meaning of words and why things are as they are, the way they are. Reality testing, again, starting to understand this is the time when children go to school, time when they figure out the way rules work, not at home, not in daycare, but more like, more grown-up-ish. Of course, it's still school, but for them, it's already a new stage of development, understanding that there are children who will be older, who are like middle schoolers, or like children from 6th grade, are completely different acting than children from 1st or 2nd grade or kindergarten, understanding that they're older and they're also bigger and they sometimes bully, right? Bullying occurs, right? Understanding unified wholes and grasping difference in opinions, understanding peer pressure already at this point, okay? If they will have their own opinion in a group setting, they may change it to match those, and it depends on the personal background. It depends on how how those children went through the previous 5 structures, right? Whether they, let's say it as it is, whether they had a spine or they don't have a spine, right? Whether they're early position or late positioned. Late positioned are more opinionated. They have more resources, early position not resourced enough. So they constantly, they will conform easier, okay? Forming own opinions and rules, understanding, is it safe for me to have my own opinions and rules? Remember, it comes from the previous autonomy and will. If it was safe with the parents, then it will be safe in school. Even if the teacher is mean, I will still voice my opinion because I know I can get away with it. I know I can do it. Okay, even if the teacher will punish me or put me on a suspension or something, my parents will stick up because my parents originally gave me the idea and understanding at the age of 2 during the autonomy and will stage that it's okay to do this. We allow you to explore the world safely and successfully. This is the idea. The idea is, yes, there will be challenges, but still, nonetheless, that person will go through challenges, believing that they will be successful in voicing their opinion, being able to fight, being able to argue, having the belief I can argue and my opinion will matter. I have value. I have dignity, value, appreciation, respect, even if others don't agree with my opinion, even if others don't think the way I do, even if I have a completely different point of view than everybody else, doesn't matter. It's having this inner sturdiness within them, right? Inner structure. I still matter. And that, like I told you before, that always comes based on before, comes right away. Their issues straight go back to stage number 1, existence. I have the right to exist. I have the right to be. I have the right to life. I have value. I have dignity. I have respect. Okay, it always comes from the first stages. Being able to use arguments in a confronting contact manner. Okay, saying, and this has come from, remember, transaction analysis. I'm okay, you're okay. We can argue, have a debate like adults, and agree to disagree, but I still will go forward and tell you my opinion. Okay, who do we see here? Political figure, opinionated, or somebody who is sullen, will roll their eyes and be passive aggressive. Okay. Early position. Okay. Early position. Attributes. Parents ignore young children when they begin forming their own opinions. They're not allowed to give parents telling them, you're a child. Don't talk when adults are talking. Don't disrespect your parents by forming your own opinion. They actually say that, right? Don't express your opinions when your parents are talking. You should be quiet. You shouldn't have your own opinion. You should only follow what authority is telling you. By authority, they mean parents. That's what happened. Child loses contact when forming independent opinions. They feel like if they have an independent opinion, the parents will disown them. And remember, early position children are those who value connection, who need connection, who didn't get enough connection from their parents. So they will self-sacrifice, they will put aside their own individual needs in order to feel connected, okay? They don't have enough resources on their own to form their own opinion, to kind of be more persistent, okay? If I have an opinion, something wrong will happen, I will get hurt, it's not safe for me to have my own opinion, that's the thinking, right? Has difficulty forming, holding, and articulating opinion, because again, it may not be safe, I may be disowned. Possibly opposes opinions of others, passive aggressive, non-verbally insinuates another's opinion is foolish, okay? Whatever, right? Again, more like passive aggressive, gives up on intellectual curiosity, okay? They will not explore, they will not try after a certain time because they're not encouraged, and not just not encouraged, but if they're punished, corporate punishment, emotional punishment, okay? If they're enforced upon them, they will stop having or expressing their own opinion. Difficulty rotating spine, right? Sways from side to side because not stable enough. Slightly raised eyebrows, passive, given up, and know-it-all expression in the eyes. They need to learn to feel support in their opinions. They need to use, perform bodynamics, ego functions, and associated muscles. This is connection to what I was telling you, the body image course where we learned, I show you the special exercises to do that will support the muscles. Feel supported and affirmed in developing intellectual curiosity. Late opinions are those who are called opinionated. When parents reject children where they cannot, this is going to the complete opposite. The parents say, you didn't prove your point well enough to me. Basically, the parent saying, I'm smarter than you. So even though you're expressing your opinion, I'm still going to be smarter than you. So you lose based on the fact that you are lower in status, in mental ability, logical ability, verbal reasoning, maybe ability to contain yourself emotionally, right? Basically, parents putting the child down, not altogether, but creating what do you call that? A very what's the word? Creating an atmosphere where the child feels threatened, not to express or not express opinion, but rather feels threatened not to be high enough or good enough or perfect enough. Again, the perfectionism plays a role. The children are put in a position where they constantly have to, what's the word? Fight for their opinion being good enough to be admitted, right? Because somebody is always better than you are, so you're not good enough to be my child. So they have this unattainable status of ever being good enough as a mom or as a dad, whoever they connected to the most. Each one of us connects to one parent more than the other. That's our soul mission. Identified with being right. Remember, that's what I said. It comes from the parent saying, you never be good enough or right enough for me. So their whole life is about proving to others that they are right, that they are good enough, that they are a perfect kind of child, and they deserve it, okay? Hold on to opinions irrespective of logic or correctness, okay? The most important thing is for me to be right. Doesn't matter whether objectively it's correct, subjectively it makes sense to me, that must be true. Forward learning, argumentative, stubborn, snobbish, actively seeking to confront, arguing with others, picks arguments and tries to persuade others, and able to examine and self-reflect on their own point of view, because that's not preferable. Preferable is to continue doing anything you can to prove to somebody, aka subconsciously the parent that you try to impress as a child, that I am right and I'm worthy of your attention and your opinion. Makes use of learning, right? Don't you think? You know, ready to fight expression in their eyes. I know somebody like that. Her head protrudes forward, was like, you know, like they're butting in, like bull, you know, with their horns, right? Letting go of the feeling of the need to be right. That's what they need to learn, okay? The healthy way this person develops is know what they think and are open to what others think. It's a person with a healthy opinion structure. Understanding that their opinions are only based on what you presently know and not necessarily truth. It can be challenged and changed when you get new information. It's about understanding and accepting the social norms and values according to the situation or a place. Okay, treating people so they feel equal and included. Having refined movements, enjoys running, skipping, jumping, you know, performing actions that may be different than others, which means others are walking. You want to do something like a bit different pace of activity. Okay. And right, the idea, the messages that I had was the same, so I left it here. I would like to hear what you think. No matter what you think and how you express it, it's important from my situation. I can test them in reality. It's okay when you argue for your opinions. It's okay when I argue for my opinions and my point of view, okay? And we have the last social structure. It forms this preteen, 7 to 12 years old, performance solidarity. The complete formation of social structures, learning how to be a member of the group, learning what kind of culture they have, what's the background, what's their subjective culture. Like I said, understand the difference between what they see on TV, which was shot somewhere, unless you're actually growing up in Hollywood or California, right? It's different than where you're growing up, depending on your country and the state, on the geographical location, right? Time of acquiring and mastering high-level skills, understanding, learning to be a leader, if that's what yourself is, learning to be maybe not an open leader, right? More introvert or extrovert, right? Extroverts are open leaders, introverts are hidden leaders, right? They don't like to be in the spotlight, but if they have certain ideas and they know how to connect people together, they understand, they have empathy and they have sympathy and they understand what people need and they have the resources and understanding, mental capabilities, emotional capabilities of understanding how to run a group. They may be group leaders, but they may do it together with somebody who's an extrovert leaders, basically president and vice president kind of roles, right? Understanding how it works in a group, right? Learning. So disruption in the stage can have fear of competing. All right, competition is what I want to say before, right? The parents, when they create this competitive state where the children constantly feel like they're competitive. That's what I wanted to say about this, the late position in the previous structure. Okay, that's what it is. Disruption in this level, in this stage, in this, as we're talking about performance solidarity, the last stage is about learning to be competitive, balancing between being competitive enough to overcome challenges, but not overly competitive where all you're thinking is about competition without the growing from challenges and learning from growth, okay? Needing to be a star in any group in spite of the consequences, you know, this celebrity kind of thing, you know, following. I don't care what kind of content I'm going to post as long as I get followers, kind of, or actually sharing things that you actually believe in. So the developmental theme of this last structure of performance and solidarity is being engaged in groups, like I said, about thinking about being inside the group, being out, changing between different peer groups, okay? Different hierarchy, what position, you know, having different abilities, different type of capabilities, different skills, having friends nearby, having friends far away, right? Finding a balance between relations with somebody who is best friend, who is somebody who is not such a close friend, somebody who is an acquaintance, starting to work, also creating work relationships, thinking about the terms about we and them, right? Thinking of yourself as part of the group, individual and part of the group. Understanding being a part of the group of the same sex and various, you know, two sexes group, okay? Developing different feelings, developing your own individuality, and also understanding how that can work with the groups, with different, again, social structures. Understanding, do you want to be a leader? Do you have what it takes to be a leader? Do you not want to be a leader? Competing with oneself, competing with others. Doing something special, practicing physically, psychologically, and cognitively to do it. Seeking various types of knowledge, education, interest, hobbies. Developing a sense of responsibility concerning duties. And of course, understanding the value of money, although as a psychology of money practitioner, I want to tell you the value of money. Although here it develops realistically, the value of money would develop from the very first stage, the existence, the value of money, we start understanding while being as a fetus within the mother's womb, okay? Examples, you can see Bernie Sanders, leveling, or competitiveness, right? We have Beyonce here. Somebody who is, this is not Beyonce, Tyra Banks, I just realized. Somebody who is competitive, somebody who wants to be, you know, more opinionated, who wants to prove that they know better or they know more and they'll know, they do things better, okay? Or just being a part of the social structure is more important than winning. So early positions in early positions is about when parents, peers, teachers put the child down when they begin to perform well, downplaying it, gaslighting, and all that stuff. Child experiences a loss of worth and dignity related to performance. So basically, child thinks no matter how much I perform or how well I perform, I will never be able to do well anyway. So what's the point? Children are often shamed, ignored when they begin to shine. So basically not being dignified or not being valued, not being respectful when they do well, not being given, basically not being given the status of saying, yeah, you did it, you achieved it. Identifying with group and trying to maintain status quo. Concerned with fairness, equality, and conformity. And I think it's more about, again, about achieving it with the parent, because the parents kind of don't encourage, they kind of constantly seek that. And then you see adults who behave the same way. So they also have a duality about this. At one point, they seek attention, they do things to stand out. At that end, they kind of try to avoid it. When they get it, they kind of get away from it. They try not to be standing out. This type of people more stand for communism, socialism. So basically, collectivism, they're more about fairness and justice for everyone. Social justice warriors. They believe that everybody should get a ribbon for competing. Everybody should be a winner. Nobody should be singled out, simply because, again, we talked about it. Because they don't feel they're being succeeded. So in this case, they feel like, why should others be successful for their kind of at their expense? Because that's how they view it subjectively. They seek it as others being successful at their expense. Okay. Can engage in shaming to try and level the playing field. Okay. They look focused with a searching look, appears to have a soft expression in their eyes. Again, they're not very competitive. Let's make it fair for everyone. Playing the fairness game. They need to learn to feel secure in their uniqueness. The late position disruptances results in being overly competitive. This happens when peers, parents, and teachers reward the children with contact connection only when they overperform or when they successful in high competitions. Basically, again, promoting this perfectionism idea, okay? That I will only value, I will only attribute my attention to you and connect to you if you are the best of the best. Child begins to see performance as the best way to get connected, to get attention from the parent. Child learns its value is not inherent, but only relate. Basically, they feel like I only value if I do well, if I do succeed in my project, if I get enough people for my course, if I get a reward for doing well, if I stand out and become. And this one already depending on the parent. It could be either become a follower, or in this specific case, it's become a unique person, not following the group, doing something. Again, over emphasis by the parents on perfectionism. Ballet and soccer moms and dads who are notorious for creating the structure, or the parents who are very demanding. They want academic achievement, overly academic achievement, overachievers academically, very image conscious, social status to change, we need to make sure that we are proper, right? Those of you who are familiar with elements people, this is the earth element, everything has to be proper. Everything has to be like social structure demanding. Okay, if it's popular to view on Instagram, then I will go on Instagram and I will open up an account. If it's popular to be on Facebook, if it's popular to be on Twitter, I will be on Twitter. If it's popular to buy Tesla, I will buy Tesla. Okay. Kind of following what the parents want you to do, because you're still trying to get notified and accepted and valued by the parents. Or it could be also the positive, doing opposite of what your parents do, because what's the point? You will never achieve the status where your parents will accept you, because they can never accept you, because what they want is not realistic. Driven to acquire status or symbol, position in work, coming first in competitive sport, only, opening up your own business or becoming a president of the company, lots of shoes, designer, everything, again, the social structure status, not your personal point of view, not subjective, but rather it is subjective, but it's really trying to appease the social structure, the objectiveness, what others expect you to do. Okay, competing with others for best position, ideologically thinking about more capitalism, I'm better than you, I can make more money, Darwinism, survival of the fittest, like what I said, becoming overachievers in order to try and maintain connections, again, with the significant others. Again, originally it's a parent, later it could also be a spouse or a best friend or a social peer group. Have difficulty fitting into groups, because even though they try, but they are very unique. They're aware of their uniqueness. They have a lot of resources. They may actually be better, more, not better, but they may be more able, they have more capabilities than average person, but that's so subjective anyway. So you can never say who's somebody who has more capabilities than the average person, because average statistics is so generalized that it's overgeneralized. So it's everybody in a way are more than the average in a way. What else? Obsessive with performance and being clever, being addictive, retributive, jealous, because if things don't go my way, it's the highway, okay? Face this focus is an expression of goal, directness, and performance. This really high, like very sharp kind of face, sharp kind of look. And also, like, you can see this person is focused on goal, focused on winning, focused on competitiveness, okay? To feel that they have value introspective of their status, achievement, performance, to be okay with an ordinary group member. They need to learn to do this, okay? Healthy status, when it's a healthy development during this stage, this is what happens to children and adults as they grow up, okay? Being secure in leading, excelling, being a member of the group, being able to establish a positive sense of themselves in the group, feeling as part of the group, being able to be a leader as necessary, but also being able to connect to the group, connect to others, having empathy, having sympathy with others around you, understanding that your value is not whether you are a leader or not a leader, or follower or not a follower, whether you win or whether you lose. Having value, feeling dignified, no matter what you do, no matter what choices, no matter how much you succeed or don't socially seemingly succeed in life, okay? Again, all those successes is really on a social subjective level. It's not, you can have your own personal view of what success is. Okay, again, those of you from Goals and Values, you know what I'm talking about, because this is what we worked on. Having your values, your goals, and your values developed for your own soul mission. Gaining value by being able to move between doing their best and helping others to be their best, okay? Again, being able to balance between giving and taking. Being able to be balancing between leading and following. Okay, and remember what a leader is. A leader, there's always a social hierarchy. You're a leader for somebody below you, but then above you, there's somebody who is higher status, right? That actually better works as an example with the teaching system, right? The way teaching system works in many philosophies, many religions, right? You're a teacher for somebody. Once you learn something, you want to become a teacher, right? Once you teach others, you become a teacher, you get people who listen up to you, but then you need to have a teacher too, right? Similar to what we're doing in NeuroGraphica, right? First you get the basic level, then you become a specialist and you start sharing this method with others. Then you have a chance to become an instructor, right? A lot of people remember before the course opened up on the institute level, I remember people asking me, I want to be an instructor. That was the reason why I was talking to Pavel and saying, we need to do this in English. People want to be instructors, and that's a great, great honor for this method to get to this level, right? But then you always know, even as an instructor, there's somebody who is higher, right? You have other supervisor. We have Pavel in NeuroGraphic, let's say, method to follow, right? Any other practice as well. You have somebody, but even Pavel, he has his own teachers he follows. I know who they are, for example. And they have their own teachers, right? And there's always a higher, but that's what it is. It's this hierarchy that somebody is above you and somebody is below you. And you being able to be humble, right? There's a famous sage. He had 2 papers in his 2 pockets. One pocket had a paper that said, I'm nothing, dust of the dust. And the other pocket said, I am the most important person in the whole wide world, right? And it's being able to maneuver between both of this. It's about doing the best and accepting when they fail, understanding that failure is the best way to learn to grow. Failure is a way of challenge, of growth opportunity, okay? Comfortable doing what is needed by the group, able to recognize other people's skills and support them if they need assistance. Physically, the healthy person has a straight back, and erect posture, and flexible and fluid movements. Enjoy using and developing the physical and mental skills, and will practice repeatedly to improve the abilities. Okay, what else? Okay, the messages are here that we're going to repeat when we're going to draw the mandala. Okay. The mandala we're going to draw this Thursday. I couldn't, I had an issue last Thursday that impeded me from following through with the session. So the module 2 session 1, we're going to actually do this Thursday. We're going to draw the model of me, myself, and I. We're going to go through we're going to draw a model of all these structures, okay? Okay, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Thursday. Please join me live. I understand everybody's busy, but try to join live because that's the best way to actually draw together in a group setting. Okay, you get a lot of nice, good energy coming this way, okay? Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day or night.